back to Dungeons and Dyslexia. My name's Adrian, and this is my weekly channel update. And in these videos, I look at the games that I've played, what I've bought for the week, and also then I'll have a conversation sort of topic point. And this week's topic it stems from the video I did yesterday or a few days ago, obviously depending on when you're watching this, is the recent Monolith Games Conan book, which obviously is a fantasy. It's shall we say, it's a game world that people either like or hate. You know, there's that element of slavery, sexism, misogynistic, big muscly men, scantily clad women, nudity, variety of other stuff. And in the book, it's got this little section there, for sort of player warnings. And so the video is about that, and then the alternatives and my thought really on where you should go. So before I get into the video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel if this is the sort of thing that you like. My channel is dedicated to role-playing, news, reviews. I look at crowdfunding, etc. So what has arrived this week? It's obviously we have the Conan books, which I'm not going to discuss really in this video because there is a whole video dedicated to those, so please go and watch that. So other than that, I've had 3 books. And obviously, full disclosure, one I've paid for and 2 I've been sent to look at. So this is the one that I bought, which is ShadowDark Vigilants by M. Strauss, which is a superhero game for ShadowDark, which intrigued me. I watched a video on his channel and I was like, that sounds really interesting. Now, I haven't really had a chance to look at this yet because real life work takes over. So, this is why I do these sort of first sort of flick throughs just to get a base idea. But I'm really enjoying ShadowDark, and the chance to play ShadowDark with superheroes intrigues me. So it was on sale on DriveThruRPG. I'll put the links to the video for this book in the video in the description. So this is actually my first sort of flick through. So we've got so it's going to do. That's how it's going to separate. So you've got the class. Actually, you're straight into character creation here. Oh, is there any? Actually, there's not even a contents for this. That's very strange. That's what's kind of surprised me. Is there an index at the back? No. Okay, that's kind of weird. But we're looking at 207 pages. No contents, just straight into character creation. And what have we got? So character creation, pick your class, determine your starting points, determine your starting money, and your base movement, and then base disarm damage. So as you'd expect from ShadowDark, sort of games than that. So backgrounds randomly rolled, and then we've got a strong, fast, smart, charismatic, and self-made. Oh, high-tech as well. So you've got your Iron Man. Like the art style, it's really looking good. So it just seems a bit... Here you go. Here's a book full of words and tables. I'm sure it'll make sense once we get into it. But you'd expect some sort of basic content. So we've got minor powers, and then sub powers, and then major powers. Okay, and so the major powers are sort of explained in a little bit more detail. But I think it's a good idea. We are seeing lots of different games and game ideas coming in, using the ShadowDark world. So if you fancy superheroes, this is. So what's this? Sorry again. ShadowDark Vigilants. This is an adventure for ShadowDark. There's a theme going on with what I'm being sent currently, and this is a adventure campaign by Arthur Marquis, I think it's pronounced. He has sent me this copy. He hasn't asked me to review it. He saw a couple of my ShadowDark videos and he was like, "Would you like a copy of this?" It's an adventure, and only a fool says no to something to look at. And it starts with the contents, which is great. So, this is the inside of the book, which I always talk about. If you've got a physical copy, use the inside sleeves, I think it's called. It's probably got a technical word for something else. And this has got the table. So it took me a second when I was reading this, but this is obviously the tables of different cults in there, the dungeon layout for the players, and kidnapped miners that are in there. And then if you go to the back of the book, We've got another table here for sort of treasure, fabulous treasure, legendary treasure, etc. That is a very, very good use of it. So I'm not going to spoil this because it is an adventure. I hopefully will get it run within the next couple of weeks. And then I can sort of give feedback on how the adventure went, how it, and got on. But it's got hyperlinks, which is always a good plus. Very nice laid out contents. The book comes in at 170 pages, and it's all hyperlinked, as you can see. You could argue there's a little bit too much in the contents. You've got the history here, and then it's got the links for every single creature. I'm not going to complain. Not going to complain at all. But then lay out the dungeon, etc. So what can we sort of say? One of the last free mercenary companies to roam the Shadow Marches, a brotherhood of steel is led by a single captain. The Wyverns never broke the contract, perhaps except in the task of tracking and killing the Spell Devourer was the company's demise. But it all seems better than being drawn into succession war about to erupt on King Otto's death. So you are going to a location, as you could see, within. There's lots of NPCs, lots of creatures. There's an element of a hex crawl here. And I think, from what I could work out, I think you're going here, but I'm not totally sure, say. And then you've got Havenford, which is the town. And then you've got a lot of NPCs. So this could be a little bit daunting, just depending. And then we've got obviously creatures, and then the Moonsilk Keep, which is, I should have probably said the title of the book, because what it doesn't do is it doesn't say it on the front. If I go, well, I'm on page 23. So if we go back to there's nothing on the front of the book. So we've got here the Defiler of Moonsilk Keep. But yet it's an all so starting adventure. I think it's from 1st to 3rd level, I think, and then it's a sort of dungeon crawl, as it says here, race to the bottom. And there's different factions in it, so I don't really want to spoil it, but it's got its own carousing rules, etc. So yeah, that's it. Well, always thank you very much for sending this to me. So we will get it looked at, and then I can obviously talk about it on the channel. And then we have the Shucked Oyster, which again is another copy of a ShadowDark book that has been sent to me very kindly by Matt Pritchard, who sent it over. I think it was Matt, it might have been Nick, but obviously I can say Matt Pritchard. That's not the same Matt. Was it Matt Pritchard from Dirty Sanchez? That's not going to be the same one, is it? I think it was Matt Pritchard. And Nick, oh dear, Guldotti, hopefully. But this is a location for ShadowDark with a lot of adventures. So it's 274 page location full of NPCs, it's sort of adventures and sort of interactions and sort of an ongoing plot that is around this place itself. So the Shucked Oyster is, when we get into this, how to use this book. So some inspiration here, sort of like things like Twin Peaks, Breaking Bad, Sopranos, Vampire the Requiem, Welcome to the Saint Cloud, never heard of it, Shadows of Easterin, which we have played and we did semi-enjoy. We enjoyed the world, didn't like the system, but I don't remember why. But the overview, so the Shucked Oyster is a drop-in location that can be used in any ShadowDark town or campaign city. It's a titular brothel that is a location in the game world where characters will basically have different carousing to earn XP. And I'm wondering why that's been sent to me, because I have to do this. Occasionally I do point out ladies' bits when it comes to these books. But yeah, I these things are really good because you can just pick it up and drop it anywhere. So it's got a load of NPCs in here with artwork, ideas of locations where you put it in the city, new carousing rules which are going to interact with it. There is again, I don't want to spoil this until I get too much into it, but you've got sort of loads of random encounters with patrons and whores. I'd say this is I'm going to assume this is probably not for children. You're not going to want to run this with the kids. You're going to have coming on to the later in the video, that sort of X warning, which is the idea of things, this is going to need a certain crowd of people that you're going to want to run this with. You're not going to want players that are going to, oh, we don't like that. If they're not comfortable with sex and prostitutes and stuff, then it probably isn't the account for you. There is something right at the start here that actually talks about handling sex. So there's details. So it's designed to be a jumping off point for fun and interesting adventure, not personal kink. So it's not designed to be an out and out sort of dirty, sort of smutty adventure. But you can't run a prostitute themed brothel, I would say, without possibly upsetting certain types of people. So the artwork in the book, there is a variety of nudity in here. It's not a bad thing. But yeah, just bear in mind, don't run Sunday afternoon, get your mom and your step parents together and your kids, sort of sit down and go, right, we're going to run ShadowDark. You ever played ShadowDark? No. And then this, possibly it's the sort of game that you might want to, let's say, build up to before you sort of throw it at everyone. Okay, so that's what's coming. I said that Conan has come in, but I'm not going to cover that in this video. There was 3 books for Conan, so it was the full pledge from Monolith. Okay, so games played this week. Games played this week was very void. I only played 2, and I played 1 actually because we were creating characters for the other. So we've picked back up for Infinite Monkey Tales to run. So we're still playing Pulp Cthulhu. They're slowly coming onto YouTube now, which is really great. So obviously, if you can catch up with us live on a Friday night, so they do have their own Discord. I probably should share their Discord in this video. So they run a lot of games, campaigns. There's loads of GMs in there. If anything, there's too many and not enough players. So obviously, if you're a player and you want to join any games, and they run games at Dragonbane, Discord, that Forbidden Lands. There's so much going on there. So go and join there. And we are now finally back in New York. There has been a big change to the party. So again, I can't spoil the adventure because I think I'm 10 parts in now, and only 2 parts are on YouTube. So I don't want to say too much, but then there's been a quite shift. And we've only got 2 more parts left, and then that's it done. I think we are then on a 12-week break. So I will be looking for something else to do on a Friday night. So if you're running a game over Discord, let me know. Throw me out an invite. Let me see if I want to join. And that's not that I want to join. It depends whether I want to play the game, is what I mean. And then Sunday night, we were back playing Soulbound, which is a fantastic game. I know Age of Sigmar is a bit divisive, and Warhammer, people are a little bit into Warhammer game, but every Cubicle 7 game that I've played so far is thoroughly amazing. Artwork, story, everything that they put to it. But this is one of my favorite mechanics in the game, which has really drawn me into Soulbound, because you get to manipulate the dice. Again, I don't really want to talk about the adventure, but say Rob's back. He had personal things in his life, so he is now back, physically back, and on time this week, because last week when he came, he was half an hour late because he got the start time wrong. So just as a hint, if you are going to join a group, make sure you're aware of the start time. So therefore, Rob, you've got to mention this week. You were like, I watched this one, seeing if you mention me. So you are mentioned, and well done for turning up on time. So you're 50% on time now, so well done. It's a really good, fun system. And then Tuesday night we are back playing one of my favourite all-time fantasy games, and that's Talislanta. We're playing 5th edition. There are 6 editions of it because this game has existed since the 80s. It's a fantasy. I'm just going to stop there for reasons later. But yeah, I started with a magic user, and I don't think I can cope with it. So I'm in between characters. Session 0 was yesterday, and I got to the end of Session 0 with a character I don't want to play. So I'm now going to create another player between now and next week. So that's it. That's the games played. Okay, so the sort of conversation point for this week is, Conan arrived yesterday, and I put a video on, and there's been a couple of comments on there about the safety warnings in the Conan game, which has put people off. And I kind of agree with them. You know, if you're basing a world on Conan, which is, well, even I talked about it in the video. So even Amazon were doing a Conan TV series, and then Jennifer Solke came in and she went, "We're not doing this. It's not the sort of message we want to be sending." I think it would have been fantastic, and quite frankly, I hope now she's gone, someone else actually picks it up and runs back with it. As long as it's run as Conan should be, as Howard wrote the book. You know, Arnie did. As far as I'm aware, I haven't read many of the books. In fact, I haven't read a full book for Conan. Read some comics and things like that, and watched, you know, the three films. Just Jason Momoa film count? It shouldn't. I'm just going to put it out there. No offense to Jason. I think he's great in what he does, but it was just, I think, probably let down by the plot. And obviously it's divisive, and they've got this X warning in there, and 5th edition has very much gone down the same route, and we're kind of seeing this. Yes, we've got a game. They're trying to appeal to everyone. And I think you're actually excluding an awful lot of people, which is your target audience. Because when you're trying to appeal to people, it almost feels like you're trying to get a new market, which is absolutely fine, because that's how marketing works. That's how a product grows, but not at the extent of losing your existing audience. Now, if people are basically not going to buy the Conan book because they're scared of the trigger warnings in the book, you're kind of doing a disservice, because Conan shouldn't need trigger warnings because it's a Conan book. That's just my thoughts on it. You know, if you are playing a book, because I then turned over, I think it was 2 pages, and there was those boobs on the page. And it's absolutely crazy. Like, oh, trigger warnings, there may be elements of slavery, sexism, misogynistic behavior, murder, death. Ooh, boobs. You know, it's a weird choice. Anyway, so what I want to go through today is a variety of fantasy books that you may or may not have heard of, and that I think that none of these, as far as I'm aware, come with trigger warnings. They're not apologetic at all for what they're trying to do, what they're trying to achieve. So if you don't want to play a game that has trigger warnings, it's up to you. You know, if you want to play trigger warnings, absolutely fine. But there are certain games that, if you throw a trigger warning in, is going to take away from the game you're trying to play. And that's really the point I'm trying to get to. That if you're going to create a game especially based on a very famous IP, don't then go, "Oh, we're really sorry that this might upset people." Because if you're going to be upset by it, don't buy the book in the first place, and buy one of these. Okay, so one of these, I'll come on to it as we go through it. So these are, I think it's 12. Hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so these are the 12 things I think that you should be running or playing. And if your favourite fantasy book isn't on this list, let me know. You know, there's one big omission on here, and that's because, and I'll talk about it now, and that's Dragonbane. Is I don't own a copy of Dragonbane. So to try and do a video sort of say, buy these books when I don't own it, is a bit weird. So Dragonbane is a very, very good Free League publishing book. It's their equivalent of Dungeons and Dragons. It's existed for about 40 years, and again, doesn't apologize. It's like, these are the fantasy themes this is what you're going to get in the book. Okay, so Dragonbane is the one that isn't on the list, but is still something you should pick up. So first of all, and I apologize, I've read this, I've never ran it, but people constantly tell me, and it's a great read. I really did enjoy it. This is Castles and Crusades. I have assured people on this channel that I will get an adventure started at least by June this year. So I am now starting to work on Castles and Crusades. And this is your sort of standard old school. Oh, I should say everything in here is in alphabetical order, I hope. So that this isn't, 1 through to 12 or whatever it may be. These are just 12 books that I think you should add to your collections, or at least some of them. So Castles and Crusades, you've got variety of characters. It's going to all look very familiar to you. It's all the stats, so strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. If that's not familiar, I don't know what you've been doing for the last 30, 40 years. You can choose your class and races. So the class is barbarian, bard, cleric, druid. There are some strange things in here, but should still be familiar. Illusionist, knight, wizard and assassin, and then you've got different races in here, so it's all sort of D20 level based, just fantastic old school sort of. I think it's kind of, I mean, you could argue, well, obviously it's a D20, well, not obviously, but it's still a D20 system rollover, but it's a little more sort of old school, a little more sort of grounded in sort of realism, and it doesn't, one thing it doesn't do, one of the big grumbles I had or have with 5th edition is, once, as a games master especially, once the players go over a certain level, it becomes, you're competing against superheroes, and this doesn't appear. So this is without playing, because I say it's much beloved, and so I've got. So you're gonna want, this is the latest editions that you can pick through on TTRPG. GMS Games has Castles and Crusaders license in this country, so go and buy them from there. So that's Castles and Crusaders. The next one is Chivalry and Sorcery, which is a 602-page 5th edition mega huge thing, and it's not quite, well, it is fantasy. It's a D100 system. So it's D100 roll under, sort of like Call of Cthulhu, with exploding dice, because you technically roll your D100 and then you roll a tens dice, and then that's a critical dice built within it. And this is based in medieval Europe, but it's still fantasy. So there is magic, there are spells, there are dragons and things like that. So I really, really enjoy playing this game. However, I find it really difficult because it is quite complicated. And when I say complicated, I mean sort of really grounded in core realistic mechanics. So you've got like depletion of armor, and different weapons will do different damage depending on the armor. So if you want a realistic, grounded fantasy game that's sort of D100 base, so you are moving away from your D20s, because sometimes people are going, I don't want to play a D20 system. This is really good. It's experience based, so you do sort of level up your characters based on experience, as opposed to just going up, as in level up, as in skill points of view. It's a really good system. It's going to be a tough read, but it is very worth persevering with, especially if you're a massive fan of medieval England, because then you don't need to worry about, you've got hyperlinks as well to the different chapters, which is really well done. But as you can see here, like the skills, there are thousands and thousands of skills. It's so realistic that I can imagine this being a little bit off-putting, and especially, let's say, coming in at 602 pages. But you don't need anything else. This is the player's guide, the GM's guide, and the bestiary all in one book. It's got a deep section on magic, religion. When a book's got a whole section on movement, and different movement races depending on what armor you're wearing and things like that. So it goes into it in an incredibly deep level, but really, really worth checking out. So that is Chivalry and Sorcery, and the edition I play is 5th edition. Next up is Draconicus, which is by The Yellow Hand, written by J. Sodelius. What I didn't do, actually, I don't think I said who did Castles and Crusades, which I should know off the top of my head. But it's Troll Games, isn't it now? And Chivalry and Sorcery is Britannic Game Designs. So Draconicus is a sort of, it's based in its own world. It uses its own system, which is the Stars system, which I've covered on Tales of Menace and Mystery. And it's his own unique world as well, and it's vast. The Stars system is really good. It's really quick and light to play. And I like this because, again, it doesn't really apologise for anything it's offering. The world itself has got its own people and cultures. They all come from their own areas. There is a little bit of sort of spreading out as well within the world. And then each county or area of the world has got its own geography, history, current situation, governments, religions. So that there's, obviously you've got the relatively sort of rivalries and things that go on between the different races and factions. There is magic in the game. So yeah, it's I say, being a completely unique system, which is the star system. I'm trying to just sort of see if I can get. So here we go. Here's a character to look at. So you've got only 6 stats, so it's nice and light. And each star that you've got in a system will allow you to roll that number of dice. And you get different dice depending on the creature, from a D4 to a D20. Well, it can some monsters go up to a D100. And you're looking normally at getting 6s, and if you get a 6, you get a success. There's a miniatures game as well with it, which so there's a board game which I've not actually seen. But character creation, you get the place that you come from, which would determine some of your starting stats, and then you've got your different archetypes. So it works on archetypes as opposed to races. This just gives you an idea of skills and capabilities and stuff that your characters are going to have. So I really enjoy the star system. It's good. So again, the links for this will be on DriveThruRPG, which is just it's just an alternative fantasy world that is completely original. There's lots of other source books on there as well, which is good. Next up is a book that I'm sure most people have heard of, which is Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is, it's by, why can I never remember these things? So it's written by Joseph Goodman, by Goodman Games. Thank you for naming the company after your name, because it makes it easier to remember. Fantastic artwork. It's a rules-light D20 system in his own worlds. There are actually plenty of adventures and things and support for this that you can buy. The book's 488 pages. Don't be intimidated, because pretty much from page 200 onwards is the spells. So if you're not playing a spell user, there isn't a lot to do and to sort of go through. If you are playing a spell user, good luck. This spell system is absolutely fantastic. However, it's a little bit, great fun to play, because it's mainly not that the spells are a problem. It's just more when you fail the spell rolls, it does certain things, which is good. It's great from a player point of view, great from a dungeon master's point of view. I would say this most famous thing that this bought was level 0. So it's a level-based system using D20 with stats that you'll recognise, strength, dex, con. But it has this amazing funnel system where you start with 4 or 5 level 0 characters that go through an adventure, and if they survive, you get to move them to level 1. So as opposed to just looking at a character background, which you will see with certain games that will just give you skills and then you have to kind of think of something, you will take so you'll roll it randomly. So you might have a gambler or a shaman or a locksmith they'll start with a weapon and some sort of trade good, and you will just send them all off to go and protect a village or go and find a magic item, and loads of them will die. It's absolutely great fun for player and the games masters. And I also think it's really important because it does get new players with the idea of the lack of the mortality of players, not lack of immortality, I should say, because when you have other games like D&D that bring in death saves, and kind of ridiculous death saves sometimes because it can be quite hard to kill players, it makes players too brave and they just run into combat and don't really care. This makes players accountable, as actually does do most things in here. But so it should all look familiar. Things like cleric, thief, which is the rogue now. So in the old days, it was called thief. Nowadays, it's called rogue. Okay, so we've then got Fantasy Gits, which is by my friend Jay Lassard. I say my friend. We've been talking for a few months, and he does join my Tuesday night, so we are friends now. I kind of apologise if I'm covering his games, because we do speak, and he plays in my game, but he's only started playing my game. I don't need to justify any of this, but yeah, I don't cover his games because I know him and he plays my game, if that makes sense. This relationship started a long time ago. But this is, I would say, there's one other game that I haven't included because what I haven't wanted to do is cover more than one book by a game designer. But Fantasy Gits is a absolutely fantastic game. It's got hyperlinks and content. So it's a D20 system. Everything will look familiar. Strength, dex, health instead of con, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. You've got all your races, so human, dwarf, elf, halfling, half-orc, but then you've got lizard folk and ratkin, and then you've got your different races. Your different classes, so things like fighter and apprentice and stuff. But then they're subdivided in between. So the fighter, you can either be a warrior, knight, or sellsword. Apprentice, so sorcerer, witch, alchemist, etc. But what this game does differently is you're not heroes in this. You are technically, here we go, you're mercenaries. And what you are doing is you are out looking for money, and that's it. That is why you're adventuring. This sort of takes away from that. A lot of people go, oh, I want to be a hero or I want to be evil. We're not saying you're evil in this game, but you're doing it for yourself, and your band has got together for yourself. It has this amazing background. So like Dungeon Crawl Classics, you don't get to just pick your background. In this one, you will have terms. So, for example, if you're a novice, you will have your first term. So the term is the amount of time. I think it's 4 or 5 years. I can't remember off the top of my head. And that's how long that you spend doing whatever it may be. So in your first term, you will roll a d6, and then that will give you a random. So for example here, so you're going to get a random skill, knowledge, first aid, meditate. You'll also have a random event which will go on, so it might give you a bonus skill, it might reduce your movement, you might be blinded, you might gain attributes. So there's random things that happen in your background, because sometimes just life happens. You don't get to have your perfect background before your character starts. You then get, if you do second phase, second term, you will then get to do things like specialize. So you can become a cleric, a paladin, or druid. And so they all the rogues, so the rogue, thief, assassin, bard, and you get to pick these as well. So it just does that slightly different change on it. It's relatively light and quick to go, but there is a skill-based system. So in this, one of the big criticisms of 5th edition was the lack of skills. This can never be found guilty of lack of skills, because as you can see, there's lots of skills. There's also then a lot of talents, which are things, again, feats, because 5th edition doesn't have many feats, though where it does, they are. But this isn't a bash in 5th edition, by the way. This is just alternatives to unapologetic fantasy games that are what they are. That there are no safety warnings in these games. Okay, so that is Fantasy Gits by Jay Lassard. We're then getting into, I did a review of this the other day, Grim Wild here, which is a fantasy. So this is 5th edition, and I've seen other people talk about this being 5th edition done better. It's a very sort of cinematic twist on 5th edition. So it's by J.D. Maxwell, and the illustrations by Per Yanka. And it uses a Moxie system, which is a different way of running the game. But from the character sheet, so you've only got 4 stats, which keeps it very, very simple. But all the classes will look familiar. So you've got fighter, barbarian, druid, etc. And as you level up, you are then going to have set powers that you just then put in a circle in the box, and that is the power that you get. From a rolling point of view, you're just technically rolling d6s, and you're looking for it's 6 is perfect success, and 4 and 5 is like a messy, so it's a success with issues, and 1, 2, and 3 is a failure, if that makes sense. And you say you'll have a variety of numbers of dice to roll, and so it's rules light, goes very, very fast the way it plays. I was slightly confused, and this is, I think it's more, I said in my review, this is more of a me issue. You've got different types of creatures to fight as well: mooks, tough, elites, and bosses, and that determines how many hit points, how long they'll survive. But it uses a variety of different words as opposed to when you're rolling for things and it's like successes, it's cause it's messy and stuff like that. So it sort of played with my mind as I found it a little bit harder to learn. But the good news about this one is it's mostly freely available on Drive-Thru RPG. You can buy it, and if you buy it, you get the back chapter, which has got all the solo rules and other things at the back of the book. I'm just going to show, and loads of magic items and stuff. It's worth paying for, but if you want to just test it out, you can test it out for free. Next up is Old School Essentials, and my version is the Advanced Fantasy version, which is basically AD&D. And the reason I picked this up is not to necessarily play this hyperlinked. It's very, very, you know, it's got a big following. But I want to play Gods of the Forbidden North, which is so I've done a couple of videos on it, which is an absolutely epic campaign. And it runs into that, but I'm now not going to run it that way. I don't think. I've had read through this because THAC0 confuses me. I know everyone tells me that THAC0 and AD&D is nice and simple, but when you get something, you get something. I think once I get back into playing it, but other than that, it's going to look familiar. So strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, charisma. So it's all very much old school, second edition, sort of late 80s, early 90s Dungeons and Dragons. So this is, again, unique setting. But it's setting adjacent, but then you can bring in your own settings. And it's back in the day where, you know, if you were a half elf, that was your class. You know, you didn't have, so you could be a fighter, so you can be a human and a fighter, but if you were a race, then you just got your class and that was it. Okay, the next one is a bit of a cheat because this has only just been funded and I've played through this, but I haven't played the final rules yet. And this is a very good Conan sort of cheat game, if that makes sense. It's an original game designed by Joseph, I can't say his name, Salvador. All hyperlinked again, so well done. But this is his own world that is very much inspired by Conan. The world lore is incredibly good, but like Dungeon Crawl Classics with the D20 chain system, this has got the chain system. So as skills get easier, you will roll a larger dice. If it becomes more difficult, you'll roll a smaller die in there. It's very, very quick to play, but there's lots in here as well. I say all the armor rules, etc., are really good. I was really blown away by this because as an independent creator of a game with a system and world, it's always really nice when you sort of pick up these games, and it does something slightly different. This is free to download, so you can go and download these quick start rules. Say it's just funded on Kickstarter, but go and download it, have a look at what it does and what it does differently. I'm not doing it justice. Again, I've done a whole video on this, and I was really, really impressed. The magic system does some really good stuff as well. You know, you are rolling to do it, and when you fail your mouse, again, there are what I was going to say, so you get sort of like corruption, there's bad things that happen, so the more that you fail, the more corrupt your character becomes. So there's downsides for not doing well, you know, which is I'd say it's really, really interesting. And I these are the sort of things that I really do love, you know, a bit like Fantasy Kids and Grimworld, when, you know, you've got smaller companies and even Draconicus, you know, sort of, this is what I love about this hobby, the sort of smaller, more independent producers and writers. Next up is ShadowDark. I've put this in because I feel that I would have just got a load of rage in the comments if I hadn't. You know, if you don't know what ShadowDark is, you've probably been asleep for the last year. But this is incredibly rules light. It seems to have hit the market at the right time. So it's D20, roll over, rules light, there's no skills involved, you're rolling off strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. The lighting mechanics are all good fun. Again, but you do, so it's not quite old school because you do get to pick your race and pick your class. Not a lot of races in the starting rulebook, so you've got 6, and then I think it's only 4 classes. Not everyone can cast spells, not everyone can heal, randomly rolling backgrounds, and it has led and inspired an awful lot of creators, because the one thing that ShadowDark has done really well, because the rules are so light and so easy, that it has allowed people just to create their own stuff based on this world. But yeah, ShadowDark, I definitely recommend that you should check out, as everything in here. And then we've got Tales of Argosa, which again, this is a self-written 2nd edition technically book by Steve Grodzicki. I think it's how it's pronounced. You'll probably have a go at me for getting it wrong. These are the Kickstarter rules. It kickstarted a while back. It's funded. It's probably the best fantasy role-playing book I've ever read, and that's even from how I'm reading it. But what this game does is absolutely second to none, and I think this is one that definitely everyone should own. Even if you're not going to run this as rules written, there's so many good things in this that you should be picking up and homebrewing, putting into your own games. So things like, again, let's just do the tributes quickly. Strength, Dex, Con, Intelligence, Perception, Willpower, Charisma. So Perception and Willpower are, that's replacing your Wisdom effectively in this game. Then you've got the 8 stats, which is Initiative. But it's, 3d6. Everything was going to look very, very familiar. The luck rules are really good because it takes the luck. It doesn't take the luck rules, because Steve corrected me when I did the video, but it feels like the Pulp Cthulhu luck rules, where if you fail it, you can then spend luck to help you achieve stuff, but then your luck gets spent. You've got this half scorn, which is the unique race in here. Artificer, Barbarian, Bard, Cultist, fighters, magic users, monk. So parts of that will look familiar, and as you go up a level, I think it's the one that's capped at 9. Yeah, so it's only capped at 9 for balancing purposes. So once you get to 10th level, your character effectively retires off. There's no real sort of, everyone gets attack of opportunities in here. Working as parties, the magic skills work really good, very clever, because that turns up a dice, so as you cast more spells, it gets worse and worse for your players. I'm trying to sort of summarize everything in here, which I can't do very well. So go and watch my review on it. It's a little bit long. I think it's probably 30-40 minutes. It's absolutely fantastic. So it's absolutely rampacked. So this isn't even the full rule book. It's 249 pages, but it's got the rules for mass combat, ship combat, solo rules in here. Yeah, absolutely. And from a reading point of view, fonts used, layouts, titles, I'd say it's actually one of the first books that I've picked up and read, and it's been an utter joy to read, just because, say, simplicity. So Tales of Argosa, everyone should have this in their collection. Say, there's no world in it, but then many of these others don't have a world, but Steve has made loads of world books and stuff available completely free on TTRPG. But ultimately, we've got Talislanta, which is why I stopped talking about it earlier. So this is the 5th edition player's guide here. Old school D20, rolling above. It's not balanced, and it doesn't expect to be balanced. This is all freely available as well so they bought out 6th edition. And 5th edition all the way back is now freely available. So if you just Google it, you can just grab any of this. I haven't set up the book properly, have I? I need to do that. There you go. Now it looks like a proper book. But unique world, lots of unique races. The races as well have different stats for male and female, which I know that sounds very old-fashioned, because that might upset some people, but it's absolutely fine for men and women to be physically different. And sometimes the women are more intelligent, sometimes the men, sometimes the women are stronger, etc. It doesn't apologize. It's not level based in any way. There's no elves in the whole game. They always make this play about elves. I just want to show some of the unique races. It's the spell I didn't understand the spells. So we've got all unique races here, like this four-armed creature, the Aramites, and they've all got their own backgrounds, relationships. It's an app. If you've never played Talislanta, go and grab it. I say it's free. You can pick it up for free and try it. If you want a less complicated character creation, you can pick up things like, I think, second and third edition. You don't have to do what we're doing in fifth edition because you just have a complete stat and that's what you play. So you've got different base attributes and hit points for all the creatures. They've all got different starting special abilities and quirks and powers like feats and stuff. Yeah, it is absolutely fantastic and free, which is, why wouldn't you try out a game that's free? So that is my last but one game, Talislanta. The final game, and there's no shock, no surprise here, and it's alphabetical, and the my favourite game of all time currently this year, and that's Warhammer Fantasy. First, second, or fourth edition. Don't pick up third. If you pick up third, don't blame me if you've picked up the wrong version. If you grab third, it's not a role playing. Well, anyway, it's just a little bit different to all this. But Warhammer Fantasy, it's a dark, grittier world where humans are they're by far the dominant race. There are elves, halflings, giants, variety of other things that you can play. Everyone's got a character class or career that you will then level up your career. The rules are hard, heavy, deep. The world itself, I always think of it's very sort of like 14th, 15th century Europe because there are firearms in it. It's a little bit Solomon Kane if you're aware of the film or the books. Let's say the book's not the film. Actually, I didn't mind the film. The ending was terrible, but the film itself was mostly pretty good. Again, another Howard writing. But this is, it's a D100 system, roll under. So if you played Chaosium Basic or Call of Cthulhu, it's that sort of thing. But you've got levels of passing when you come to do a roll. So if you've got 70 in skill and you roll 69, you've only just passed. And if you roll 50, you'll have passed by 2 successes. And so the more you pass by, the better you will succeed. And this does, especially in combat, does this really wonderful thing where if you miss, and let's say you miss by 1 success level, and then they dodge, because you do oppose rolls, and they dodge and fail by 2 success levels, you're still going to hit them. Because they basically dodged into your, they were dodging away the same way that your sword was going. Absolutely brilliant. But all the player characters can have all these different careers that they can go on to, and they'll level up in their careers and get better and, have money. There's a wealth system. There is a class system as well, where the wealthy look down on the poor. Everything this game just does not apologize for it. And you can see again why people go, oh, don't play that. It's it's going to upset people. There's no trigger warnings in the whole of this book. And again, I'm not saying this from a you should be upsetting people, but if you just want to play something without let's say not based for, what do they call it nowadays, not based for a modern audience, Warhammer is good. You're going to need a couple of extra books, which I talk about all the time. Wings of Magic and Up in Arms. You need those. If you don't want to go and buy 3 books, get second edition. Second edition is practically a perfect edition. If you can find it, that's the only problem. 4th edition is the latest one and currently in print. So if I have missed any fantasy games, please let me know. So those are the 12 that I recommend that you should go to. Say that they don't apologize for what they are. They are just rules as written. They don't really, they're not worried about upsetting people. If you want to play a game, as I said from the outset, that you're not comfortable playing, then don't play that game. Go and find something else, I think. Don't make everyone else at the table change to you. Maybe you should just either accept them and play their game for a little bit, and then hopefully after that they'll then come to play your game, or just maybe sit with a different group for that month or however long that they run those games. It's just my thoughts. Hopefully that doesn't come across as being ignorant, because I So I've been in this hobby for now about 35 years, and you know we do unofficially have a year zero, sort of a session zero when we talk about games, but there are going to be themes and there are going to be parts that people aren't necessarily going to enjoy, because you can't enjoy everything about a session. But yeah, if you're going into a theme that you know you dislike, I would say don't sit around the table in the first place. But just my thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you on the next video. Oh, later today, we are doing actually a review of ShadowDark on my channel. So come and join that. We are going to be doing a giveaway of the book as well. So if you comment, I think that's how it's going to work for the giveaway. I'm not totally sure as yet. But yeah, if you're still here, thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next video.